It's me, Olive Dragon 23, making yet another video. I told you I would update, and I did, or will, after I make this. So today, I would like to talk about, jobs. Particularly the job that I'm currently in, at least a little bit, and then jobs that I've had previously that I have alluded to in other videos but didn't really elaborate on just due to the nature of the theme of those films. If I was making films, I wouldn't be doing this. But particularly, I would like to talk to you about my jobs in food service. I have had exactly 3 jobs. Professional jobs, unless you count babysitting, which you should, because watching children and animals is actually some of the hardest things that I've ever done. Kids and animals are about the same, and they're both very difficult to deal with at times. I love them both, but dang. But that's not what I'm here to talk about today. I'm here to discuss my jobs in various forms of food service industry jobs. So my first job when I was 16 was working at Chick-fil-A, which I've mentioned before, in the basement, which you should go watch. I know there's only 3, but they are very amusing. And that was an interesting experience. I was 16 and I had obviously never had a job before beyond babysitting. And so my manager and the owner of the store was named Dave Butts. B-U-T-T-S. I could not make that up if I tried. That is how that worked out. And I could not talk to him without without laughing, almost laughing. And I felt so bad. I'm like, I'm gonna get fired because he's gonna be like, what are you laughing at? And I'm just gonna have to say, I don't know, I just thought of something funny, whatever. Fortunately, that didn't happen and I didn't get fired. But that was an experience because I had never done an interview before. My mom and I, my parents had been trying to prepare me to do interviews and giving me advice and that kind of shit. But no matter how much advice you get, being in an actual interview and talking about being in an interview are 2 different things. And it's really intimidating. But I went in with Mom to just get an application to apply to Chick-fil-A and possibly work there. And the guy was like, oh, I can interview you now. And I was like, wait, what? My high school ass is not ready for that interview. And thankfully, Mom sat there and kind of helped me out a little bit, which Mr. Butts did not seem to care about. But the only reason I think that I got that job was because, 2 weeks prior to me doing that, there had been a representative from Chick-fil-A that came to my school, and talked about, the company and what they did and how they were a Christian company and this and that. And then I mentioned, when he asked me about what I knew about Chick-fil-A, that I just regurgitated some of the stuff that this visitor had said, and I think that's why I got the job, honestly, because otherwise I'm pretty sure that, they would have been like, you know nothing about food service, why are you applying for this job? It's a high schooler. You're supposed to teach me this shit. And then I had to go through 8,000 boring training videos that looked like they hadn't been changed since the 70s, but that's not the point. So I got that job, and honestly, it was an okay job. It was. Regardless of my feelings about the company itself, it was an okay job. My coworkers were alright. I didn't really make friends with my coworkers per se. They were not the friendliest group in the world. Nice enough, they would help me out a bit. But, again, watching videos about how you're supposed to do your job and what everything is, and actually, physically doing those jobs and being taught hands-on to do those jobs are 2 different things. So I struggled a bit. it was a summer job, so I was only there for about 4 months. I struggled most of the time I was there. Like, by the time I was figuring stuff out and not screwing up as much, I had to go back to school, which was unfortunate. But I did pretty well at that. Like, I never pissed anybody off too much. Like, from things that were actually my fault. I would screw up drink orders and stuff, but it happens. I mean, we're all human. It's unavoidable, mistakes are made. But the thing that I could not stand about that job was the customers. The customers were, like, they ranged from very nice to fucking, I really want to, like, punch you in the face, but I'm not allowed to because we have to be nice to our customers as requirement for working here kind of thing. I have never seen such aggravating levels of stupidity in my life than I have working in a professional environment. I would have people, like, when people joke about drive-thrus, they're not actually joking. Chances are it's true. Dane Cook's stand-up routine, yeah, that is entirely true what he says. I would have people who would come through the drive-thru and ask, like, for hamburgers and, like, I had a guy come through the drive-thru, ask me for a Whopper Jr. and a Diet Coke, and at Chick-fil-A we have a speaker box, we don't have headsets. So everybody behind the counter can friggin' hear you when you talk, just an FYI. So don't say anything rude, and don't be aggressive because the whole restaurant will hear you. We also have you on video, so don't flip off the screen or anything. Just so you know. But, this person asked for this, and of course everybody behind the counter is laughing their asses off, and so am I, because, you know, if I'm not holding the button down, they can't hear us. But, I just went, sir, we don't, it's like the end of my shift. I was like, sir, we don't serve Whoppers here. I get, like, maybe a 30-second silence on the other end of the speaker, and then this dazed, confused voice comes back to me. Oh, where am I? And then they drove away. I'm like, this person is driving a car. Should I report you to the authorities now or later? Because you clearly have something wrong if you don't notice the giant red sign that says Chick-fil-A multiple times before you actually get to the physical restaurant. Like, we have it in front of the restaurant, we have it on top of the restaurant, we have it everywhere. That logo is all over the place around the area. You should probably see it before you come in. Somewhere. Just anywhere. So that was one weird thing. I also realized that, people will, with drive-thru, like, drive-thru was my favorite job, but it got really frustrating, especially when we would get really busy, because people will either shout at you or they will whisper to you. There is no in-between for this, and I promise you that. So I would have people who would come up and be like, I want a number one with a Coke and a sweet tea, and I'm just like, Jesus Christ, okay, I know this is a speaker box and I'm really, really grateful right now that I don't have a headset on or my ears would be bleeding. Tone it down, I can hear you. But then, I can't decide what aggravated me more. Probably whispering, because then I have to ask them to repeat their order like 600 times. And there's only so many times you can ask someone to repeat something before they think you're being a jackass. But I'm not being an asshole, I just really can't hear you, sir or ma'am. People didn't really seem to understand that. I would have people at the physical register mumble their order to me, and then expect me to know what the fuck they wanted. Sometimes I just had to guess. And that, thankfully, turned out right more often than it turned out wrong. But, like, I would have people come up to me at the physical register and ask me for something, and I'm just like, what did you say? What did you say? I'm sorry, what did you say? And I'm like, ugh. It really made me angry, especially when they got rude about it or got antsy with me, and we'd have like 800 people in line behind them. Like, there is also no in-betweens on Ghost Town and the entire Russian army in terms of levels of how crowded a restaurant is, especially a fast food place. I'm off a highway exit, so we got every kind of person, which didn't help. But, like, there is no greater fear for fast food workers than when you see a bus roll up, like a school bus, like with a sports team, club, I don't care what it is. If it's a bus and you just see it going by your front windows and you know they're gonna stop, that is terrifying, because all at once you have 800 people in your restaurant and they all want shit from you. And we have like 5 employees, like behind the counter, tops. Like, it's bad. We had one of those instances with a family. I guess it was like a family reunion or some shit, because there were 800,000 of them. Our ice cream machine broke down. This is in the middle of summer, and for those of you who don't live in the US or don't know what the summer on the east coast of the United States and the south is, it sucks. It's like 100 degrees and up, 100 to 110 sometimes in the middle of summer. Extremely high humidity, like you feel like you're just gonna die the second you set one foot out the door. It's that kind of heat. And our ice cream machine broke down, and every time that, because ours was really cheap and terrible and crappy, and every time that happened, everyone who came by the restaurant, drive-thru or inside, wanted ice cream. And that happened with this giant family. They all wanted ice cream. The thing broke down, so we had to wait like 20 minutes for it to like unfreeze itself, which is ironic as hell that the ice cream machine would freeze up. But irony aside, it was pretty awful. And then, oh my god, like my manager literally went and sat in one of the booths and was like, I'm just gonna go cry for a minute, guys. Do you need me? We were like, no. Yeah, so we told my manager to just go. And that's not fun, because like people don't know how to form a line properly, apparently, when they're in a large group. It's more of a herding cattle mentality. What else happened to me at that job? There were so many things about that job that I was like, well, this is a thing that I didn't expect myself to be doing. I mentioned in the episode of The Basement where I talked about this job that they sent me into the freezer a lot, like the big industrial freezers, you know, and those, to this day, I am intimidated by the freezers. I have played enough Resident Evil 4 and seen enough horror films to know where that sort of scenario goes, and I always feel like I'm walking into a horror film when I go in the large industrial freezers. I don't like it. But they sent me back there to get things out of them quite frequently, and I lived in fear that I would be shut inside one of them. Now, it wouldn't be such a big deal if they had 2 of them. The second freezer was fine. Like, if I got shut in there, I knew how to get out, because they have like mechanisms on the inside that you just like press a button, pull the handle on the inside, and you can get out, but they do automatically lock if they close. The first freezer, however, the handle was broken, so if you got shut in there, it would still lock. But the handle on the inside and the outside was, well, the handle on the outside was not really a handle anymore at all. They used a screwdriver through the holes of the handle to fucking lock this thing, and so even if you did activate the little mechanisms on the inside of the freezer door, you could not get out because it's just a screwdriver through the holes. Like, you're not going to be able to move that unless you manage to shake the screwdriver out by rattling the door, which is kind of hard to do when the door is about maybe at least 7 inches thick and huge and steel, and I am a skinny 16-year-old girl who can't really move the door very well when I'm just trying to open the damn thing. So yeah. But they would send me back there for shit, and it was stuff I couldn't lift, really. Like, for instance, giant things of Aquafina bottles. Like, literally, just like, there'd be a package, like 20 Aquafinas. On the very top shelf, it was like there were 3 shelves, 3 layers of shelves. They were always on the top shelf, and I'm too short to reach, and they always sent me, and I, instead of saying, hey, I'm too short to get these, and they're too heavy for me to hold, and hey, I don't want to die today, I was trying to do a good job and do what I was told, and so I would Spider-Man my way up these ice-covered metal shelves that are not very strong, but I would climb them, hold this thing above my head, and try and just kind of like ease it to the floor without falling, and like drop it flat. Yeah, I could have killed myself, and no one would have found my body, as I stated in the basement, because nobody would have come to look for me, because I was the new kid, and it was like me and everyone else who'd been there for like 10 to 14 years. I kid you not. So, I'm just this dumb new kid that gets to do all the horrible stuff, and nobody would have come and looked for me. Because, and I know that it's true, because my manager, nice as he was, frequently forgot to give me breaks when I was supposed to have them. Like, because we would get like a 30-minute break if we worked over 4 hours, which I did frequently. And it'd be like 30 minutes to the end of my shift, and I'd be like, so should I go on break or not? Because I haven't yet. And he'd be like, I'm sorry, I forgot again. This happened like 4 or 5 times. It was ridiculous. I did get a free milkshake out of it once or twice though, so I guess it's not the worst thing ever, but I was really tired, you know, by the end of almost 5 hours, and I kind of wanted to sit down, because we were not allowed to sit. And at both my first job at Chick-fil-A and my second job at Harris Teeter, which I will get to, we were not allowed to sit down because apparently it's unprofessional, which I don't quite understand, because my dad is a professional and, you know, does an actual job that doesn't suck, and he gets to sit down all day, like executives do it all the time. And I'm pretty sure doctors get to sit down, and that kind of shit. So, unprofessional my ass is what I have to say to that. I'm sorry, but it irritates me. I'm not going to think less of somebody working at their job if they are sitting behind their counter or whatever. You know, like I don't think that's a thing that normal people think, unless you're just that friggin', like, if you're that bored and have nothing else to do besides judge people who sit down at their job because their feet hurt. But, you know, whatever. But I also, I don't know how many of you have worked in fast food or at any restaurant really, but I'm sure you've all seen the little nozzles where you pull the little tab for like the giant thing of like tea or lemonade or whatever. But at Chick-fil-A we have those little plastic nozzles on the lemonade tanks, which are enormous, and we get lemonade out of those directly when we're at work. They are the most unreliable things I've ever seen in my entire life. I'm not even joking. Because one time, like, at the Chick-fil-A where I work, one of the nozzles was not, I don't know if it was the plastic on the tank or if it was the nozzle, but the thing would just not stay very well in the tank. like in the little hole for the tank. So it would leak sometimes. And so I saw it leaking, and what we normally do is just like push it back in, turn it a bit. So that's what I did, and I walked over to my register. Not 5 seconds later, I hear my coworkers freaking out over next to me, and I look over and there is lemonade spewing out of the hole in the little plastic tank. The nozzle's gone. I don't know where it went. And there's lemonade just going everywhere, like all over the floor, all over the counter. It was a disaster. And Chick-fil-A lemonade is like the stickiest thing in the world. I don't know why it's that way, but it is. And so that stuff was just awful to clean up. I didn't really have to clean up most of it, but it was still like on the floor, like the stickiness was still like on the floor even after we poured like hot water all over it and everything. That was special. And I think that same evening is the day that I learned how to clean the ice cream machine. Because normally they left that job to the guys because it's kind of messy and gross, and I'm short, and the other girls I work with are short, so the machine is taller than I am. But they were like, hey, you want to learn how to clean the ice cream machine? Because like this was like one of the 3 times that I actually had to stay and close. And I was like, well, sure, I guess, because I'm probably going to have to know how to do this anyway. So they were like, okay, what you do is you take this towel, wrap it around your arm, and shove your hand all the way back into the back of this machine. So it's got like a big hole in it where like you take something out of the front. I don't remember exactly. It's like a plastic thing. To clean it, you take out the plastic panel, and it's just a black abyss of a hole. This is a machine, and I'm just like, you have to be kidding. There is no way that I'm gonna stick my arm in there, but I did. I did stick my arm in there with a towel wrapped around it. I'm like, this is how I lose my arm. Like, you know, because you can like feel all the like mechanical bits in there and stuff that don't come out. They're like, okay, you're gonna reach all the way back, and there's a knob that you're just gonna pull off. You'll feel it. I'm like, I have no idea what I'm looking for. I'm gonna break this stupid piece of shit that's already pretty terrible anyway, just because I don't know what I'm doing. I did manage to get it, but it was the grossest sensation in the world, because like you pull your arm out and like the towel's like dripping nasty ice cream shit, and it's cold, and just it was really, really nasty, and I am grateful that I never had to do that again. And hopefully never will, because that was really weird. But yeah, Chick-fil-A was a special experience, especially for a first job, but I did learn customer service skills, I guess. Like, I'm a pretty friendly person. I bitch a lot, I'm kind of cynical, but like, I am friendly, and I do try to please when I feel that people are not being assholes to me. Like, if you're not an asshole to me, I have no reason to be mean to you, I have no reason to hate you. I'll be your friend. I like making friends. Like, that is a thing I like, even though I'm a giant introvert and an artist. But, like, it did teach me that customers are the worst things in the world, and I kind of hate them. But when I was out of school for summer again the next year, I was like, I'm not going back to Chick-fil-A, and you can't make me. I want to do something else. Unfortunately, that something else ended up being more food service, just a different kind. So I ended up working at Chick-fil-A down the road from me, and Chick-fil-A, Harris Teeter. I worked in a grocery store, and that was different. I was the cashier again, and that was fine because I already had experience using registers and what have you. There were just a lot more things that you had to know in terms of putting them into the register because it's a grocery store, there's a lot more food, which is fine, I guess. My coworkers were nice enough there too. I never really spoke to any of them though, because they just kind of ignored me and I was the new kid, and I I don't know. We all had our own spots at our registers that we were not really allowed to leave. You were not allowed to walk away from your register unless you were told to do so, which was weird, because there were usually multiple registers open. But there were usually other registers open, so I didn't really get why I was not allowed to like walk more than 2 feet away from my register at any given point. So I spent a lot of time pacing around like a caged animal and reading the headlines of the magazines next to my spot a lot. Multiple times over the course of like 5 to 6 hours. Yeah. So when I was told to go and like stock things and do returns, which I didn't actually like to do because I didn't know where anything went because I never left my register and no one ever showed me. I was very pleased to just be away from my register because it meant no one would bother me. But damn, do grocery stores have some serious downtime. It was busy when I first got there, like in late spring, like May-ish, but in the middle of summer, there was no one there, and it was super slow, and all I had to do was stand around at my friggin' register and do nothing because no one was in the fucking store, and it was really, really stupid. I don't know why we had like 10 people on days like that. I got sent home early a few times, just because there was literally no one there, which is weird for a grocery store, but, I had some trouble there. I'm surprised they didn't fire me, actually, because there were several instances where their schedule was really complicated, like needlessly complicated and hard to interpret. So a couple of occasions I had days where I had to work, and I did not know that because I could not figure out how the schedule worked, or I would like not see a day when I would go through and check what days I worked the coming week or whenever. So I literally had a few occasions where they would have to call me and I would be out somewhere, like at the mall or something, and I'd be like, I'm sorry, I didn't know I had to fucking work today because your schedule's so friggin' shitty. So, okay, but I'm really surprised they didn't fire me because that happened about 3 or 4 times. My managers were just extremely forgiving because I guess they knew that I was a stupid high schooler who didn't know anything. But honestly, working at the grocery store was better than working at Chick-fil-A. The customers were usually nicer, but I will tell you one thing, and that is that the customers at Harris Teeter, some of them were extremely entitled and snobbish. And I'm like, dude, you are at a grocery store. You need to bring it down a little bit with the entitlement because everybody has to buy food. Like, that's kind of a basic need. We all get food. Just because you shop at a Harris Teeter doesn't really make you superior in any way. I didn't have that happen super often, but when it did, it was just like, ugh, please don't bother me. Or like the registers would stop working and suddenly it's your fault. Technology is never your friend in situations where you are just trying to move people through quickly and efficiently. Something will go wrong. I had customers who would argue with me about the prices of things. I don't really know the exact prices of everything. Like if we were having a sale or something, they would usually say, hey, we're having a sale, just so you know. Or like if people had coupons that weren't expired, I would use them, you know. Like I'm not gonna fight with anybody about their coupons. I just want to get their stuff taken care of so they can leave. You know, I'm just trying to do my job. But it is always your fault when you are the one who has to deal with the customers. Even if it's not your fault, they are going to assume that it is your fault. I don't really care what business you're in. Which is not fair, but you're the messenger and they will shoot you first without even thinking about it. But I had to call my managers over a lot. I was kind of undertrained for that job. Like they gave me like 1 day shadowing someone else, but she had to work her own register and couldn't really teach me very well. It was during a particularly busy day, and then they were like, hey, can you handle your own register today? And I was just like, I guess so. And so they shoved me on a register, and I had to bug them pretty much all the time while I was working there for the summer because they didn't bother to teach me properly, but I did okay. I mean, you know, I didn't do anything disastrous or lose the company serious amounts of money or anything. But speaking of that, they would usually put me on register number 1, which is at the very end, kind of near the entrance to the grocery store. And so I was behind a giant shelf of like soda boxes, like cans, you know, the really long boxes. And so you could not see me behind this giant shelf. And so people would walk by and look directly at me when they're looking to check out. Yes, I am wearing the same sweatshirt I'm constantly wearing. It got cold up here, leave me alone. People would look directly at me while they're looking to check out and then keep walking. And I'm like, guys, I'm open. Like, just because I'm standing behind a shelf doesn't mean I'm not open. What are you doing? What's wrong with you? So, that was kind of weird. I still don't really have an explanation for why people would do that. But since I was normally on that register, toward the end of my time working there, my manager met with me after the end of one of my shifts and said, hey, just so you know, we are noticing that your register in the past, like, week or so has come up short like $21.80-something. And I'm like, I don't know anything about that, but okay. And so, like a register being a few cents short is normal. Like, that happens, you know, human error and computer error and whatever. Like, it's gonna happen, but $21 means that somebody is probably stealing from you. So they were like, we're just gonna, you know, we're not accusing you directly or anything, but you and this other person are the only ones who've been on that register this week. And I'm like, well, then it's probably the other person because I promise I'm not stealing from you. So they're like, yeah, that's what we're trying to figure out. We're just gonna put you on probation. And I was like, oh good, because, you know, that's what you want to be on at your job when you're in high school and, you know, all that shit. And so they started putting me on just that register it was me and this other person. But they started putting just me on register 1. So I had a lot of downtime because nobody knew I was there and they ignored me when I was there. Obviously it was not me stealing the money out of the register, it ended up being the other person, and I heard no more about it after I left or anything. So yeah, but it's very unnerving to be to know that you're being monitored while you're working and that kind of shit. Like, you know, the security cameras are typical, whatever, that's normal. But to know that your managers are watching you because they suspect that you're stealing from the company is kind of unnerving, especially when you know that you aren't. But thankfully that got resolved. But what working at Harris Teeter did to me, and it's very noticeable, is I developed some pretty perfectionist tendencies. And I'm an artist, so I was already kind of a perfectionist anyway about my work, my artwork, not so much organization. For the most part, depending on what the situation is, I will be either extremely organized or not give a shit. Like, and even when I am being disorganized, like my art studio up here, it looks disorganized, but I know where pretty much every single thing that I need in this room is. Because it's my organized chaos, and yeah, it doesn't make sense to anyone else, but I'm the only one who works in here, so it doesn't matter if it doesn't make sense or look nice to anyone else, in my opinion. Same thing with my bedroom, but working at Harris Teeter gave me horrible, horrible perfectionist tendencies about like shelving and stuff like that, because they would have me go and take care of the bakery section and the beer and wine aisles, meaning pull everything forward on the shelves so it's not like pushed all the way back and crooked, and like make it look nice, basically. And I did that job a lot in the 4 months that I was there, and so I got to the point where I was extremely perfectionist about it and very OCD about it, and those tendencies have not left me in the many years since I have been working there. Because now when I walk into stores and I see like disorganized shelves or crooked things on shelves or whatever, I have to pull them forward. Sometimes I don't, but it really, really frustrates me to see crooked things on shelves now, and I wholeheartedly blame my job at Harris Teeter for that. But those tendencies have carried over into my current job, because now I'm working in like a sit-down, nice restaurant at a country club, which is quite a step up from my first 2 jobs, and I've really enjoyed it so far. I've only been there about, this is probably gonna be my 8th or 9th week working there. And for once, I actually talked to my coworkers. They're very nice. My managers are very nice. The customers are not awful to me on a regular basis. They're very nice. And I actually get feedback about how I'm doing, which is lovely, because I do like to know how I'm doing with professional situations like that, because I'm getting paid. I want to do well. But the OCD tendencies have definitely carried over into this, because you're working at a restaurant, presentation's important. So like I noticed myself like compulsively like straightening knives and forks on table settings. Like I will refold napkins if they are not folded correctly, because we have like cloth napkins, so we have a certain way we have to fold them to make them look nice. And a lot of times, like, the bottoms will be uneven, like when we set them out or something, and I'm like, that's wrong, I have to redo it. So I will sit there and refold a napkin if I think it's not nice looking enough. But, I mean, I guess those are kind of good when you want to, when presentation matters, you know, like, because at Harris Teeter it matters a lot less than it does at like a nice country club where people pay to be there and shit like that. So, you know, but it's a good environment, and I've really enjoyed it there. But as far as professional jobs go, that is the end of my experience. I do want to look into retail, maybe somewhere down the line once I get out of school. I don't know. I have to go back to school in the fall, so I might have to either quit or suspend my working at the country club, but we'll figure that out later. Because all my other paid experience is literally animal and child sitting, which is fine. I get paid good money to do that, and I really enjoy doing that because I'm basically getting paid to play with someone else's animals. Family members' animals in particular. Like, my aunt and uncle have this giant black lab who I get to just go play with, and I get to watch my cousins, and they're really fun, and, you know, in the summer we can go to the pool and go outside, and I'm okay with getting paid to do stuff like that. Like, that's not really a job that I'm going to complain about in any way, but, I'm gonna cut this short, or off, because it's running long and editing it is going to be fun, I guess. If you enjoyed this video, subscribe and check out my other ones on my channel. And I will see you again in another vlog very soon as I have new things to talk about, new events in my life, whatever's happening. So yeah, until next time, I'm the Olive Dragon. Subscribe button is down there. Thanks for watching.